The 65-year-old tyranny in the Caribbean is officially on life support, and for the first time in history, an American president isn't just threatening the Castro regime, he is actively pulling the plug. For decades, we have watched American presidents from both parties dance around the Cuba problem with half measures and symbolic sanctions that always gave the regime just enough oxygen to survive another decade, but not this time, and not under Donald Trump. Because what we are witnessing unfold right now is the final calculated chapter of the longest-running tyranny in the Western Hemisphere. To understand why this is happening now, you have to look beyond what the mainstream media is telling you, because they are missing the critical link between the raid in Venezuela and the blackout in Havana. On January 3rd, when U.S. Special Forces conducted that precision operation in Caracas to capture Nicolas Maduro, they didn't just take down a narco-terrorist, they severed the umbilical cord that has kept the Cuban regime alive for 20 years. What most people don't realize is that Maduro wasn't just a dictator, he was a puppet controlled by Cuban intelligence services and veterans of Soviet-style oppression who ran his security apparatus, which is proven by the fact that 32 Cuban operatives died defending that regime during our operation. Those 32 agents weren't diplomats. They were combatants enforcing a deal where Venezuela sent between 35,000 and 52,000 barrels of free subsidized oil to Cuba every single day in exchange for military protection, and that spigot has just been turned off permanently. Not only that, but President Trump has escalated this economic warfare to a level we have never seen before by signing an executive order on January 29th that declares Cuba a national security emergency and explicitly states that any country selling or providing oil to Cuba will face total tariffs on all their exports to the United States. This is a brilliant strategic move because Trump isn't sending the Marines to invade Havana. He is simply using the immense leverage of the American economy to force the world to choose between doing business with the largest market on earth or propping up a dying communist dictatorship. Moreover, the panic this has caused in Mexico is palpable because President Claudia Sheinbaum found herself in an impossible position as her country had become Cuba's #1 oil supplier, sending nearly 44% of their imports after the fall of Maduro. Sheinbaum tried to play both sides, suspending some shipments while claiming it was just a supply fluctuation, but everyone knows the truth, which is that Mexico is backing away because they cannot afford to antagonize the United States with the USMCA trade agreement up for review and billions of dollars in commerce at stake. The strategy is working exactly as predicted, because when you make the cost of supporting tyranny higher than the benefit, nations will always make the rational choice to choose prosperity over ideology. And the main thing is that we are hearing criticism from some corners saying this will cause a humanitarian crisis, but we have to be brutally honest and admit that Cuba has been in a humanitarian crisis for 65 years precisely because of the regime, not because of us. The United Nations is warning of a potential collapse, and my response is good, because the collapse of a totalitarian police state that hosts Russian intelligence facilities and harbors Hezbollah operatives is not a tragedy. It is liberation. The lights are going out in Havana with rolling blackouts lasting 12 hours or more. And while the regime tries to blame American aggression, the Cuban people know exactly who has been stealing from them for decades. Furthermore, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is playing a central role in this endgame, bringing a generational understanding of the regime's evil that no previous diplomat has ever possessed. Rubio has made it clear that under the Helms-Burton Act, the lifting of the embargo is conditioned explicitly on regime change and a transition to democracy, not just cosmetic reforms. We are seeing the real application of the Monroe Doctrine, which isn't about bullying Latin America. It is about preventing hostile foreign powers like Russia and China from establishing beachheads in our hemisphere. Intelligence suggests that the Cuban military is already fracturing, with officers unable to fuel their vehicles and morale crumbling as they realize the game is over. Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act is being challenged in the courts, but even if he faces legal hurdles, he has multiple other statutory authorities, including Section 232 and Section 301, to maintain this pressure, because this is a strategic choice to end a communist regime that has been a thorn in our side for 3 generations. This is not a partisan issue. It is a freedom issue. And for the first time, the Cuban exile community is seeing an administration willing to do what it takes to finish the job. The endgame is a deal where Cuba transitions to democracy, releases political prisoners, and kicks out foreign intelligence operatives. And while that seems like a big ask, it is the only acceptable outcome after 6 decades of stalemate. We are watching the culmination of failed socialist policy meeting the hard reality of American economic might. And if we maintain this pressure, the Castro era will end, not with a bang, but with a total systemic collapse. I want to know what you guys think about this aggressive strategy. Do you support Trump's decision to effectively blockade the regime until it falls? Or do you think we should ease up? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And please make sure to like and subscribe as we continue to track the liberation of Cuba. Stay sharp and stay safe.